So he walks over to Frank's cell and he taps him on the head with his nightstick, and Frank's head falls off.
This guard had the shock of his life. He probably thought he had just decapitated the man.
For more than 6 decades, the story of Alcatraz has loomed like a shadow over American history, a legend that straddled the line between fact and folklore. The escape of 1962 was, for generations, an unsolved riddle, one of those enduring mysteries that fascinated investigators, inspired countless theories, and divided opinion between skeptics and believers. Did 3 men really outsmart the most secure prison in the United States? Did they perish in the frigid waters of San Francisco Bay? Or had they quietly built new lives somewhere far away beyond the government's reach? For years, the world had only speculation, rumors, and a few tantalizing scraps of evidence. That was until 2025, when science finally unearthed something buried beneath the surface of the bay. Something that would rewrite the final chapter of the Alcatraz escape. No more conjecture, no more blurry photographs or anonymous letters. What surfaced changed the narrative forever. The answer, long concealed beneath silt and water, was at last in the open. The truth was stranger, more haunting, and far more disturbing than anyone could have imagined. To understand what unfolded, we must return to the beginning, to the prison itself. Alcatraz was more than a penitentiary. It was a message, a symbol of control. Perched on a rocky island in the middle of San Francisco Bay, surrounded by strong currents and water so cold it could induce hypothermia in minutes, the prison was designed not only to confine, but to discourage. Here, the government sent its most uncontainable escape artists, mob bosses, bank robbers who slipped through other jails with ease. At Alcatraz, they were supposed to meet their endgame. And yet, in the early hours of June 12, 1962, 3 men did the unthinkable. Frank Morris, a brilliant mind with an IQ reportedly among the top 2%, teamed up with brothers John and Clarence Anglin, skilled bank robbers with a history of slipping through authorities' grasp. Together, they executed one of the boldest prison breaks in history. Their plan was not one of brute force. They didn't overpower guards or climb fences. Instead, they vanished like phantoms. The ingenuity was staggering. By chipping away at the walls of their cells with spoons, scrap metal, and even a makeshift drill, they created narrow openings hidden behind vents. To mask the noise, one of the Anglin brothers played his accordion at night. They disguised their work with cardboard painted to match the concrete. Behind the holes lay a utility corridor that gave them access to the roof. Their final escape depended on makeshift equipment, a raft and life vests fashioned from over 50 stolen raincoats, stitched together and sealed with homemade glue derived from prison supplies. To outwit the guards, they sculpted dummy heads from soap, toilet paper, and concrete dust, finishing them with hair clipped in the prison barbershop. When guards performed bed checks, they saw what they thought were sleeping inmates. By the time the truth was discovered the next morning, Morris and the Anglin brothers were gone. The escape triggered an unprecedented manhunt. FBI agents, Coast Guard patrols, and local law enforcement scoured the bay. They discovered fragments of the raft, a paddle, and a wallet containing family photos wrapped carefully in plastic. But of the men themselves, there was nothing. The official conclusion was swift. They drowned in the icy, turbulent waters before reaching land. Yet many refused to accept that explanation.
Over the years, rumors emerged feeding the legend. The Anglin family claimed to receive unsigned Christmas cards. Their mother received flowers every Mother's Day. A photograph surfaced in the 1970s allegedly showing the brothers in Brazil. In 2018, a letter arrived at a San Francisco police station, purportedly from John Anglin. He claimed he had survived, that Frank Morris had died in 2008, Clarence in 2011, and that he himself was dying of cancer. The FBI investigated, but the results were inconclusive. And so, the legend persisted. Were they out there, living in exile? Were authorities hiding the truth? Books, films, and documentaries kept the mystery alive, cementing the escape as one of the great unsolved tales of the 20th century. But then came 2025. What began as a routine underwater survey turned into a revelation. Engineers tasked with mapping the seafloor near the Golden Gate Bridge noticed something unusual on sonar: a symmetrical, rectangular shape buried beneath layers of sediment, just over a mile from Alcatraz. It was not a natural formation. Divers confirmed the presence of a sealed metal container encrusted in marine growth resting 60 feet below. It bore riveted seams and a corroded locking mechanism, clearly man-made, clearly decades old. At first, speculation ranged from military storage to smuggling caches. But when the container was finally lifted to the surface, the world changed. Inside were 3 bodies. Preserved by the airtight seal and the oxygen-poor environment of the bay, the remains were eerily intact. They wore prison uniforms from the 1960s. One still had a crude raincoat vest. Another clutched a homemade lantern. The third held a scrap of paper that read in shaky handwriting, "We made it, but we can't leave." DNA confirmed the identities: Frank Morris, John Anglin, Clarence Anglin. The men who had eluded justice for 6 decades were finally found. But what baffled investigators was not only their survival, but their chosen fate. Why had they sealed themselves in what appeared to be a survival capsule at the bottom of the bay? Who built it? What went wrong? Forensic analysis revealed the capsule was not hastily thrown together. It had been meticulously constructed. Reinforced walls, ventilation shafts, a sealed water tank, even traces of stored food suggested long-term planning. This was not a desperate gamble, but a calculated strategy. Experts believe the raft the men launched was a decoy, meant to mislead authorities. After setting it adrift, the escapees likely returned to their underwater capsule, waiting for the search above to subside. The idea was simple: disappear beneath the surface, wait out the chaos, and then emerge when the coast was clear. It was ingenious. It almost worked. But something went wrong. The notebook found among their belongings provided chilling clues. In water-damaged handwriting believed to be Frank Morris's, one entry read, "We got out. We beat them, but we can't risk the surface." Another, written more frantically, stated, "Not how we planned it." Experts theorize that a failure in their oxygen system or a miscalculation of air supply left them trapped. Perhaps they were waiting for assistance that never came. Perhaps shifting tides buried the capsule deeper than intended. Whatever the cause, the result was grim. The men who had defied Alcatraz were defeated not by guards or gates, but by time and circumstance. The discovery sent shockwaves around the world. Headlines declared, "Alcatraz escapees found." Historians, criminologists, and engineers dissected every detail. For some, the revelation was tragic. 3 men who came so close to freedom only to die in silence, entombed in their own invention. For others, it was vindication. The mystery solved at last, the speculation laid to rest. And yet, the story remains unsettling. They did not drown in the bay, nor vanish into exotic landscapes. They survived their escape, only to meet a darker fate. For the Anglin family, the revelation was bittersweet. Decades of hope that their sons and brothers had lived new lives were crushed. Closure came, but it carried heartbreak. For Frank Morris, who had no known family, his final words now rest in the National Archives, a sobering testament to human ingenuity and human limitation. The public response was divided. Some hailed them as tragic anti-heroes, men who outsmarted a fortress but fell victim to their own daring. Others dismissed them as criminals whose story did not merit sympathy. But fascination persisted. Tourists once again flocked to Alcatraz, not only to see the cells and the dummies, but to stand in the shadow of the escape that almost succeeded.
Museums added exhibits displaying photographs of the underwater capsule, forensic scans, and fragments of the men's belongings. What lingers most is not the fact of their escape, but the nature of their ending. They had proven it was possible to outwit the walls of Alcatraz. They had built something extraordinary in secret right under the noses of their captors. They had survived the first step, but freedom slipped away in the cold, dark silence of the bay. For 63 years, the water kept their secret, until sonar and sediment gave them up. And so the question that haunted generations, did they make it, has finally been answered. Yes, they did, but they did not make it out alive. In the end, their story is not one of triumph, nor one of myth, but of tragedy. 3 men who dared to dream of escape, who constructed brilliance from scraps, who reached freedom's edge, only to be undone by a single miscalculation. The Alcatraz escape is no longer a mystery. It is a history, a reminder of human ingenuity, human resilience, and the thin line between victory and defeat. Their bodies have been found, their story has been told, and the legend that once kept the world guessing now leaves us with something more unsettling than mystery: closure. A closure not of freedom, but of silence. For they did escape Alcatraz, they just never escaped the bay.